Welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Dr. Ankush Ambardar from Department of Tourism and Hotel Management, Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. Today, I'll be taking up a topic on tourism and hotel management, front office operations and management, and the topic is qualities of front office employees and handling guest complaints. Well, after completing this module, the students will be able to understand qualities of front office personnel in hotels, attributes of front office employees, and various complaints, their types, and methods of handling guest complaints in hotels. Front office is the backbone of the hotel, and the employees working in this department may be considered as brain of the hotel. The front office department has to perform various functions right from receiving of the guest, processing bookings of the guests, maintaining various formats and registers, providing information services, tracking and posting guest bills, dealing with complaints, branding and image building, communicating with all stakeholders of the hotel. And to deal in best way without any grievance has to be the quality of any front office employee for utmost customer satisfaction. The employee suitable for the same has to have good attributes and qualities. In spite of the facts, sometimes front office department may have to deal with various complaints occurred due to certain reasons not in the control of front desk employees like service faults, mechanical faults, etc. The front office employees have to handle such situation with utmost care. Complaints and complainant both help the management to improve products and services and should always be taken in a positive way. Now, qualities of front office employees. The front office is a critical department in a hotel in view of its revenue generating capacity and influence in image building. The staff working in it assume a special importance. The staff selected to perform duties at front desk must reflect these following characteristics. The staff members should have a warm personality and smart appearance. He or she must have keen interest in people and of polite and courteous nature. Must have an ability to pose under pressure, keeping his cool, and acts as a problem solver. Should have a desire to be helpful but also diplomatic and tactful on times. He or she must have the ability to listen, hardworking, and punctual. The staff member should be a team worker and should have the ability to get along with co-workers and pleasant approach and good motivation and a coordinator. A desire to be linked with good public relation qualities. Every front office staff should have the ability to help another employee without resenting it or showing irritation, as they have to deal with different natured guests, should be confident, analytical, intelligent, and a good salesman. They need to have neat personal habits so that no one gets irritated by such a habit. The staff member should have good memory. That is one of the key factors, as he or she should be able to remember names of regular guests for personalized services. He or she should have knowledge of language, and especially local and one foreign language would be desirable. The front office staff deal with the transactions of the guest from arrival till departure and so need to have numerical ability even. Working at front desk requires reserve of energy, as he or she have to deal with many problems that arise in hotel for time to time. Hence, by following simple rules of living can reserve built to act continuously in same mood and efficiency. One should sleep plenty to meet challenges in the day. One should not drink to be moderate. In fact, if a person smokes, one should not do that at least at working hours. A person working at front desk need to have positive nature because as on front office, one has to meet the guest and form a lasting impression. So make sure that the guest gets a positive impression from the moment he walks in. Now, attributes of front office employees. So to be a successful front office employee, one needs to have following attributes to deliver best services to guests with delight. Salesmanship. A front office member should be able to motivate guests to spend more on the hotel facilities rather than only guest rooms. Problem solver. Guests most of the time approach the reception staff in case they have a problem or a complaint. The front office staff must be diplomatic and resourceful to resolve the problem at the shortest possible time. The guest should feel nicely heard and with the hope of getting the problem solved. Knowledge of the products. No service provider can be expected not to have knowledge about the products and services an organization is providing or offering, and hotel front office is not an exception. Reference point. Being the communication center of the hotel, guests who wants information comes to the reception with their queries. The perception of guests is to get solution of every query or problem in with the front desk employees. Image builders. Front office staff are considered as image builders of the hotel as they are the first and the last contact of guest. Every phase of guest stay has to be made comfortable and consideration has to be made guest delighted. They can definitely generate a good image for the establishment in their manner of dress, communication, personal contacts and efficiency. Personal grooming and hygiene. The front of staff are mostly exposed to the guests at all times. A clean image helps to portray a good image. They should have a very high sense of personal grooming and hygiene at all times. Physical fitness. Being the busiest department of the hotel, the staff members should be physically and mentally fit to provide 24/7 services with delight. Self-confident. It is usually as front office personnel meet guests of different countries, states and cultures, they should feel comfortable and confident while dealing with these people. Quick decision making. Guests often approach the front office with problems and requests. Front office must be able to decide quickly a course of action that satisfies the guest, at the same time keeping the interests of the establishment alive. Good communication skills. The front office staff speech must be clear and language must be correct. It is desirable that front office staff knows more than one language, but the local language is mostly preferred. Knowing foreign language is an added advantage as it helps in dealing with foreign guests in their own language. Diplomacy and tactfulness. This is a great attribute required often because there are situations when guests are irritated over a particular situation or a problem. A diplomatic dealing helps in diffusing the problem instantly. Ability to remember names and faces. One of the important attributes of front office staff is to remember names and faces of guests for more personalized services, and that decides the good from the average. Amongst the front office staff, every individual has self-esteem and his and her name is most precious to him or her. If front office staff can call most of the guests by their names, this can flatter them and even the guest is retained for coming future. It may be considered as one of the major aspects related to image building. Good manners. As a hotel is meeting place for social lights, all the grace and etiquettes association with good society come into play. They are wishing the guest at all times and thanking them in the basic etiquette shown. Next is guest complaints and its types. Front office employees may be attentive and effective while in operations or handling guests, but still guests will occasionally be disappointed with product or service at the hotel. It becomes the duty of front office to anticipate guest grievances and complaints and devise fruitful strategies that help employees effectively resolve the problem. Being The communicating center of the hotel, the front desk employees, are the one to frequently receive the guest complaints and should be attentive to such complaints and seek a timely and satisfactory resolution to the problem. Every individual guest may be annoyed if his or her complaint gets ignored or overlooked, and it's the duty of front office staff to look into all such issues related with guests. The front office staff need to understand that the complaint of the guest is helpful to both guest as well as the hotel. The hotel is able to learn the actual problem and the opportunity to resolve the problem. Every grievance or complaint raised by the guest should be welcomed, as it's an opportunity to enhance guest relations. A guest complains generally because of the dissatisfaction from products and services delivered and should be considered as an opportunity, and on the other hand, guests not complaining despite of dissatisfaction and actually harmful and may act as negative marketers in large public. It has to be understood that a guest would be quite angry while expressing a complaint. The complainant has expectations of getting some action on the said event and at least expects to be listened and not ignored. The promise made on such occasions should not exceed authority and could be furthermore problematic. Honesty is the best policy when dealing with guest complaints. In case the problem cannot be solved, the front office staff should admit the same before the guest. Front office staff should be advised and trained that some guest complaint as part of their nature. The staff should develop an approach for dealing with such guests. Guest complaints can be classified broadly into 4 categories, and these are mechanical, service-related, attitudinal, and unusual complaints. So taking the first complaint first, that is mechanical complaints. The most common complaint a guest usually has is related to faults of mechanical equipments. Mechanical faults are the most common causes of complaints by guests staying in a hotel. The most common faults usually in a guest room or public area are related to lighting, electricity, climate control or air conditioner, vending machines, door keys, elevators, escalators, room furnishing, plumbing, LEDs, LCDs, music systems, etc. Before allocating a room to the guest, all equipments required to be checked, and a checklist in this concern may be used. Even effective maintenance program may not eliminate all potential equipment problems. Effective logbook may reduce the faults, and by frequent follow-up would be a best way to reduce mechanical faults in hotels and related complaints. It becomes essential to tackle this kind of a complaint promptly and in time. The front office staff on the duty requires to keep a track over such issues and give a timely response to the guests. A room shift is prepared if the problem exists for long or problem is not being identified by the maintenance department in short time. Second is service-related complaint. So many times guests make service-related complaints while experiencing a problem with hotel service at any stage of guest stay. These types of complaints arise of various factors like lack of assistant at times, long waiting time for service, lack of evening service in room, missed wake-up call, ignored request of extra supplies related to quality of food or beverages, untidy rooms, etc. These complaints arise in peak seasons when occupancy is nearly 100% and staff is at multiple tasks on times. It is important for every staff member not to ignore guests and try to give their work effectively and efficiently. Third is attitudinal complaint. This kind of complaint generally arises if the guest gets a feeling of being insulted by the rude or bad behavior of the hotel staff. In case of such a complaint, the senior staff members on the duty need to tackle such situations. To get the situation in favor, it's suggested to ask such staff members to leave the shift to avoid any more differences, and he or she does not come in contact of the guest till their stay. The senior members of the staff should apologize and assure guest that such things won't happen again and should be informed about action taken against the staff member who had misbehaved or argued. Such staff member need to be given training related to handling such situations, and if actually identified guilty, needs to be shown right direction through proper training. The next type of complaint is unusual complaint. These complaints are not in the control of hotel management, as the nature of complaints are unusual. Complaints like absence of swimming pool at a certain floor, bad weather, behavior of other guests in the hotel, public transportation, no spa, etc. The expectation of the guest always remains that the front office may resolve all issues or at least listen to such events. A training in this area has to be provided to front office associate staff to handle such situations and have potential to tackle such situations. Top guest complaints at hotels. So let's have some complaints which are usually given by guests. Guest complaints in hotels are mostly prevalent, like cleanliness. It relates to complaints raised due to lack of cleanliness both at guest room and public areas. Timeliness. If the product or service is not delivered to guest on time, may raise complaint in relation to timeliness. Food quality. The quality of food not matching to the guest's expectations would certainly invite complaint. Bed type and comfort. Hotels try their level best to provide guests more restful sleep than they get at home, but on bed type and comfort may be an alarm in shape of guest complaint. View. Every guest wishes the location of room to be the best, and eventually, if hotel in peak seasons is not able to provide the same, raises complaints over the view from the room. Value. Any product or service availed by a guest is counted against value for money. Room amenities. Guests staying in a hotel room expect to be given room amenities in accordance to room rate associated with it. Lack of such amenities will invite guest complaints frequently. Wi-Fi. Nowadays, guests want to remain connected, and poor Wi-Fi connectivity would be a matter of issue, and guests will certainly complain for more or poor internet services. Service. Hotel industry is service oriented, and the delivery of service on time and effectively is the minimum expectation of any guest paying for the same. Convenience. Location of property, getting around property with ease are the basic requirements of any traveler guest, and if the hotel is not able to provide the same, will raise a complaint to this regard. Now, handling guest complaints. So how should we handle guest complaints in hotels? The following points should be remembered while handling a guest complaint in hotels. The guest should be given patience hearing and be attentive. If required, make notes of his or complaints, and guest must be assured that you are paying attention to him and do not interrupt in between. After listening to his or her complaint, staff needs to show regret. The staff member tackling the situation needs to apologize and assure the guest that such things will not happen again in the hotel property. In case of complaint from other department, the front office staff should pass the complaint to the concerned department and ask them to contact the guest and assure him your best after apology. This assures his guest that his complaining at reception did not go waste and corrective measures have been taken. If the complaint was serious or the complaint was made by a VIP, then an apology letter or a phone from general manager and assurance from him to improve pays high dividends in future business. In case of guest complaints, the following statements should never be made. So there are some statements which should be never made when a guest complains. The front office staff should never say that the mistake was not made by them or this is not related to them and complain to other department. Front office staff should never criticize other department about the complaint is made. Some employees are habitual of saying, "Oh, bad food, sir. I'm fed up. Almost every day we get complaints about bad food. Please make a written complaint to General Manager. Maybe only then the food will improve. It is suggested that one should never argue with a guest. One should never say, "Sir, no, it is always done like this." Suppose guest complains about slow service. Do not say, "Sir, it takes long time to serve during peak hours," but say, "Sir, we will be more prompt." The restaurant or room employees should inform the guests while taking order from the time required for serving a particular dish, so guest knows that it will take long to serve a particular order. No matter how much busy one is, never do other things while guest is complaining. Even do not attend phone calls in between. Either tell your colleagues to attend calls or inform operator to not give calls and transfer the calls to other persons. Now, guidelines for handling guest complaints. Listen and understand. It is important to listen and understand the concern and problem of the guest as it's related to hotel services. Empathize. After listening to their concern, the staff needs to empathize and create a bond between guest and hotel management so that the guest believes you will resolve the same. Offer a solution. A possible solution to the problem should be offered after analyzing all aspects related to the complaint and your position on rectifying the same. Execute the solution. Once an accurate solution, the problem is analyzed and execution of the same should be done with utmost care, benefiting the guest. Follow-up. Once the staff has gone through the first 4 steps, follow-up needs to be done with them to make sure that the guest is satisfied with the solution. Now, to summarize the unit, front office is one of the important departments with significant role to play. The department is the communication center of the hotel, and as such, the quality of front office staff needs to be best in all aspects. Right from arrival, stay, and departure of the guest, the front office staff is involved in one way or the other. Hence, it becomes important to have staff with explicit qualities and attributes. The front office assistant has to be a reference point, work as an image builder. He or she should be diplomatic, confident, well-groomed, good-mannered, quick decision maker. Being the communicating center of the hotel, the front desk employees are the one to frequently receive the guest complaints and should be attentive to such complaints and seek a timely and satisfactory resolution to the problem. It becomes the duty of front office to anticipate guest grievances and complaints and devise fruitful strategies that help employee effectively resolve the problem. Complaints and complainant both help you improve and provide better services to the complaints should be always taken positively. Thank you for watching EPG Pathshala. This was Dr. Ankush Ambardar from Kurukshetra University.